Welcome to another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux.
And it's been a minute. I don't even remember the last time we recorded. It has to have been at least 2 months because you've been over there racking up the money, and business is booming. Business is booming. We're gonna go ahead and start with our quote of the week, and this conversation that we're gonna ready to have today. Once you already don't know what we're going to be talking about, but I think it's going to ruffle some feathers, but it can but it can also help future entrepreneurs. We haven't recorded in about 2 months, so I've been just seeing a bunch of stuff. Man, I can't wait till we get back on the podcast so I can bring this up.
Right.
So the quote for this week comes from this Instagram post. It said, "Bad clients are all your fault because bad clients aren't born, they're created."
Ooh.
So I think in all of our years of entrepreneurship, whether it's through the real estate stuff, through photography, through other ventures in general, we've all dealt with some bad clients.
Absolutely.
Is there one that stands out in your mind?
Well, just in real estate, or just in general?
Just in general. Typically, if I think of a bad client that I had, there's always one person that rises to the top. It was just a really bad experience. So I'm curious if you have the same.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad client, more so than a bad experience.
Okay.
Right? Dude, it was photography. And you already know, man, when it comes to photography, bro, you just run into the oddest of people. Mm-hmm. Right? Or the most uncomfortable situation. And you've been the lead photographer, you obviously are going to get blamed for everything, right?
Right.
Dude, I think it was one of my first shoots, right? Not really my first shoot. It was more so of a modeling type of shoot that I did, and I was doing a lot of those starting off, right? So, and this is before I was married too, so I want to make sure that's out there. So I don't do those shoots anymore.
No smoke.
No smoke. But it was kind of like a lingerie shoot, right? And it was super cool, right? Everything was great, and I thought it was great until I posted the work, right? I edited it, I posted it, and it was real subtle. It was nothing super crazy or, X-ray to go put the kids to sleep, they can't see it type of thing. It was super chill. I posted it, and the client mom is the one who kind of just tore me a new one, bro. So it wasn't even really the client. So it was the client's mom. And dude, when I say it was probably the worst experience, threatened with lawsuits and defamation of character. And for me, it was really because the model that it was, she was 22, 23, and I never came to her about the shoot, but she came to me about it, and I did it, right. And I was like, okay, this is going to be kind of dope, bro. It was the worst experience. I'm talking about constant emails, constant threats. Took it down, but one thing that I did learn is I ended up getting a contract after that. Before then, I never had a contract. I never had a contract with any person that did wedding, photo shoot, headshot, nothing. But what it taught me was that the work that I do is my work, right? Regardless of anything. And it just taught me ownership, man. So it was one of those bittersweet moments.
And that's the most important thing, is that lesson that you learned from it. After that, everything's in writing, right?
Yeah.
So, and people sign those contracts, so that automatically makes sure a situation like that shouldn't happen again. Mm-hmm. Now, when I think of a client experience, and I'm gonna go a little bit more deeper into the quote, because it was a full post. Buddy had 10 slides on Instagram about this topic, and I'll share some of those points. But one of the experiences that I had with a person, it came down to them trying to haggle the prices.
Oh.
And earlier on in my career, and actually, let me just go right into the quote, because it ties right in perfectly. He said that bad clients are created out of mismanagement, desperation, and poor communication. And I would say that desperation is one of the things that I struggled hard with, when I first started. I'll use my photography business. early on in the career, and I think this is for like any entrepreneur who provides a service or like, certain products, like you want to get your stuff out there. So you tend to accept whatever clients you can get,
Yeah.
right? And we both been there. Like when we started early on with the photography, you would shoot like a whole wedding for $30 or something like that. But it's just
the worst
really
thing in the
about
world.
And I think oftentimes when you're dealing with customers and like they feel like they can, negotiate that price with you, you give them an inch, they're gonna try to take a mile. So, have you had any experiences with people trying to, I guess, or have you had any experience with like being desperate in your business and then kind of just accepting whatever clients came with that?
Early on, I think that happens right in, like you said, the early stages. Right in the early stages, you just want the business. Like you can care less about the quality of the client, and I think that's the most important thing is having quality clients. Like everybody shouldn't have access to your business in certain aspects. And I know early on I was accepting anybody. I would take any photo shoot as long as they were paying. But as I got better in my craft, I wanted better quality clients.
How long did that take? Because that's a good point. Like, how do you know when it's like, okay, this is what I've been doing, and it's time for me to transition? Like, I need better clients. Like, is it like you see your work get to a certain level? Or is it that you just dealt with so many bad clients that it just makes you say, like, you know what, I'm not doing this no more?
Well, I think your clients will start to tell you, right, or your peers.
Okay.
Right? They'll start to tell you, like, oh, this person only charged this, right? Or this is only the price. I mean, this is only the price for this right here. Oh, you only charge $30 for a wedding? Oh, that's great, right? And you start to look at what you do and what others do, and you say, well, I probably need to come up on my prices because I know that I'm a lot better than that guy, or I know I'm a lot better than that person. And you start comparing yourself, and you say, okay, well, if I do go up on my prices, I'm going to lose out on, those easy grabs, right? But if you go up on your prices, those people are only going to refer you to people like them.
Mm-hmm. And we've said it before, like, the price that you charge for your service is a huge indicator to your potential clients. Like, this is the level of quality that I'm providing, but then it also says these are the level of clients that I'm hoping to attract. And I think oftentimes it's tough to make that transition to like, okay, I'm gonna boost my prices. But then I remember earlier on when you started to transition to just seeking out a different client base. Like you started, and this is something both of us started doing. Like we started working predominantly with corporate clients.
Absolutely.
Why was that the case? I know why I did it.
But well, well, if I'm being honest, it was because they don't haggle the price. The price is what it is, and I don't have to negotiate anything.
Yeah.
Versus the individual, you're going back and forth on the price on affordability. Corporate, I like to deal with people that have budgets, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to see how I fall into that budget, right? And when I say budget, I'm not talking about, hey, look, Bob down the street is charging, $30 less, because corporate clients or bigger clients, they're not going to haggle you on $100 or $200. You know what I'm saying? It's not. They're not going to go that minute on the price. They're going to give you what you're asking for as long as you deliver on the quality. But I remember I was watching this guy. I don't know if you watch him. His name is Jay Morrison, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, "How do you determine the price?" He says you have to create that market that you want to be in, right? So for him, like he does real estate, and he was like, "I wanted to be a celebrity realtor. I had no real estate experience as far as like having celebrity clients." But I told people that is what I do. And then you start to attract those people. So it goes back to what you're saying. It's like, well, if I want a certain clientele and I only want it at a certain tier, I got to position myself out there as if like, yo, this is the only one I'm accepting. No, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And then you'll start attracting those type of people. So.
Isn't that kind of like a dangerous game, though, sometimes? Like, where you can... and I'm just speaking like for myself. Like if I said that I want to specialize in a certain area earlier on, but I didn't have the skills wouldn't, if I do that prematurely, it could really just deter your business altogether because you get a bad reputation,
Yeah.
because you're not able to deliver. Like, say, this guy says, you know what, I want to be a celebrity realtor, and okay, somebody comes, and then you mishandle that whole situation. All it takes is one bad review to just really set your business back years.
But I mean that comes with any field you go into, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's if you're not a celebrity realtor, right? You're just a regular realtor. That one bad review can, set you back. But I think bigger risk, bigger reward, right? So it's
Okay.
if you want to be, in a certain tier, you got to position yourself to, as that, and you'll start to attract it. It is a dangerous game, though. It's a dangerous game because if you can't perform, they're going to tell everybody in their circle about you, and then that kind of just ruin your reputation.
And I'm really just playing devil's advocate because I definitely did that. Like, I had no experience in the situation, like with the photo booths, and
I was just
said I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really about, and I think it goes back to, like, having confidence in what your ability is. Even if you haven't done something before, like, your confidence in your ability to understand, okay, well, this is what it'll take for me to get from point A to point B is sometimes all that's needed. And I've been seeing that a lot with this house that I'm rehabbing. Like,
Okay.
I have zero experience with any of the stuff that I've been doing. But it's like, I got the confidence in myself, and I surrounded myself with mentors, like my father-in-law. He's been helping a lot. And people that I can get information from that's going to help me to be able to do the job that I'm looking to do. And with that, it builds confidence in itself as you get in there and you start getting the ball rolling. But I know that's not the norm. I know that's not the norm.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say like I'm an outlier or anything. It really is like a slippery slope when you get into these things, because lack of experience can lead to a lot of mishaps. And go for it.
Here's the question I got for you, though. Does confidence in yourself outweigh experience? Can the confidence in what you're doing outweigh your actual experience?
That is a really good question. And I think it can. And the only reason, and I'm just speaking for myself, and the only reason why I think that is because if you have confidence in your abilities, most likely you're going to do what's necessary to get whatever it is done. If you're confident, that means that you're at least going to put in the work. Like, if I'm not, it's easy to say like, yeah, I can do this, but then be lazy in the approach to it, then that's where you're going to get like those poor results. But if you're confident in your ability, then I think that's going to make you want to work harder to get whatever it is done. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think someone who's confident is also resourceful.
That's yeah. I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes into play, right? Like, even if like you said, like before, you was like, hey, I never did photo booths, but I think you're like probably one of the most confident people that I know, right? Even with the rehab, you never done it, but you're resourceful. You know where to find the information at, and I think that then the resourcing that you have actually turns into experience down the line. So I mean,
man. Oh my gosh, yes. And you mentioned it on one of the previous episodes where we talk about like YouTube University, or you was like, there's no excuses for people to lack knowledge, about certain things, or lack information. I'm going to say information, because there's a huge difference between knowledge, information. Because like you can have the information about something, but you don't know how to apply it. That's where the knowledge comes in. And then when you do something repetitively based off of your knowledge, that's where that experience comes in. But I think like with all the information that's out there, as long as you know how to decipher through it and weed through, and there's no excuses to be honest, because there's so much free game out there. I'm like, when I learned how to install carpet, like the guy that I watched the video for, he does it professional. Like, why would you be giving away like your trade secrets? But then that also comes back into, I'm confident in my ability so much as a skilled carpenter that I don't care. I can give you this free game. I'm still going to have clients because they're going to come back to me. And it's just confidence. It's key.
Confidence is key, right? I remember not too long ago. I mean, this month? First off, I painted before, right? I've painted before, and I painted my grandmother's house and things like that. But I haven't painted in about 15 years, right? Last time I painted, I was probably like 16 years old, right? But I remember reaching out to you, and you was like, "Man, dude, you went on YouTube, did this, did that," and you gave me the pointers on what to get and what not to get, and what helped you out and what didn't help you out. Dude, I was confident. Like, I look at a video, and 5-10 minutes, I'm like, okay, yeah,
Ready to do it.
I'm ready to do it.
And like you said, with when you reached out to me, I'm instantly thinking like, okay, these are all the things that I messed up doing. Let me make sure that my guy doesn't go through the same thing. So I mean, just also having somebody that you can look or reach out to, like, that's an asset in and of itself, because there is a lot of stuff that you can find on YouTube, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't find. But if you find somebody who's going through the experience already, they'll tell you how to circumvent some of the obstacles that they face. And I remember I think I told you to get you an angled brush, because when I was painting, I was painting with a regular brush, and I couldn't get those corners for nothing. So I was like, let me make sure bro don't go through that same thing.
Yeah. Here's a question, right? This is a little. I wanted to ask you this, right? On a couple episodes ago, right? I saw one of my boys post a post, and it said that if you do things cheaply, you'll end up paying more down the line. What's your thoughts on that?
It depends. It really does depend. I don't think there's like a one size fits all for that. Like, there's some projects that you can handle, like where you can kind of skim, but then there's other things where you don't want to. And I'm just thinking about like in my businesses that I've operated, like I don't have top of the line stuff, so I don't go for the luxury items, like in terms of like my camera or like my printer for my photo booth.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it with the basic stuff either. It's a medium. And then you can find, I think, with proper experience and through time, you find what you can get away with and what you definitely can't. Like, there's the printer that I first started out with for my photo booth, there's no way that I would want to use it now. But my business has kind of grown to the point where that's not even feasible, right? So I think you mentioned it before, like, you got to always assess your business and where you're at. Like, sometimes it takes using like the cheap stuff just to kind of get a feel for things. But then as you grow and develop, now it justifies you having some of the more expensive things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you say over the years you became more efficient with less than you did? Or when you started out you had more with less experience?
I think over time, when I was able to get some of the more expensive things, by working with the cheaper things for so long, it puts you on a whole nother level when you got like the right tools. Like, if you're a painter, you can, if somebody's a skilled painter, you can get a watercolor set from Walmart and make a beautiful masterpiece. But for somebody who doesn't have that experience, they're not going to be able to do that same thing with that same watercolor set from Walmart. But if you've been practicing a lot with that watercolor, when you get some real decent like paints and stuff, you'll be able to do a lot more. So I think experience teaches you, but working with that cheaper stuff kind of molds you in a sense. Because like,
learning
how to work with less, and there's so many life lessons in that. Like, we go back to like even like our upbringing. You work with a lack, financially, and it helps to shape you into the person that you are and gives you certain drives and things like that. So now if I've been working with like a cheap camera, when I got that more expensive camera and I know how to maneuver it or maneuver around it, I'm going to be able to get what I'm looking for, because I've been able to get what I was looking for out of the cheaper thing.
That's a bar drop.
But I mean, how do you respond to that?
Dude, I think that this is the same way, man. I think that you learn so much more from having less, right? Because you get so creative, right?
Man, yeah.
And once you do get more and you get those added bonuses to, the equipment or whatever, it's like everything, the workflow just becomes a lot more easier. And yeah, dude, I agree 100%.
So I'm thinking about like with this project, this house that I'm rehabbing. Like there's certain things that I was able to go a little bit cheaper on, but then there's one thing, so certain things like I was like, no, I need to get this done right,
Yeah.
because like even in the process of like me being able to find out how to do a lot of stuff on YouTube, I still had to hire out a lot of jobs because there's always going to be that trade-off between doing something yourself and then outsourcing it because somebody has the more experience that can do it more efficiently. And even when you do the more efficient option, I think that's what really keeps your costs down as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I always have trouble with finding balance and me learning how to do it and do it myself, or finding someone who already has the experience and have them do it, right? Because in my head, I can do everything.
Right.
If I watch enough videos, if I read enough books, I'll figure it out. But I think it's the time component that
Yeah.
that it takes to get to that level, right? You're talking about learning something on a basic level versus someone who learned something and got 7, 8, 9, 10 years of experience.
Exactly.
And that's what you're paying for. I can easily do a lot of these things in my business, right? And do it efficiently, or I can outsource it and have somebody else do it that's a lot more effective than I could ever be.
And I think for me, going through this process, and this is my first like rehab, the reason why I'm doing so much stuff myself is so I can really assess, what it really costs. So then for future projects, if somebody gives me a quote and I think it's a little, up there, I at least got something to, reference. Like, okay, well, I can do it and it'll take me X amount of hours, or I can just pay this money and they can do it. So it really gives you like a little benchmark, something to kind of compare to. And then like you'll find out that there's certain things that you don't mind doing and certain things that you don't want to do. And I think every business owner has certain aspects in their business that they absolutely don't like to do. And those are the things that you can outsource, but you got to be able to at least have a value associated with it to make sure that it's even worth it, or that what you're paying is worth, outsourcing.
Absolutely. Agreed, 100%.
And another thing, and I think this would be a nice little segment that we should start having on the podcast, is I've been putting up these little polls recently just to kind of get some feedback, because I have a lot of professionals and entrepreneurs who I'm connected with on like Instagram and stuff. And I actually had this discussion with my business class this week on campus, and it's really because I guess we kind of tied into like with the trade-offs that we were just talking about. And the question was, would you trade more money at your job, but you have to work longer hours? Like, is there a certain, I guess you're the worst person to ask because you work for yourself.
No, you know what? No, I think, yeah, go ahead, ask the question. I think I got it.
But I think, okay, so even like in your business, let's say that you work, because I know you don't got no set hours, but let's say that you devote 30 hours per week, to your real estate business. Is there a certain number that can get you to work an additional like 10 to 15 hours per week? Or do you value your time more than any additional number that they'd be able to throw out?
It's all about the time. Like that's the thing, right? Like for me, it's never about the money. It's about the time, bro. How much time can I get to myself, right? While still trying to build a great life for myself, right? Like I don't want to work 90 hours a week and get paid more, but I have no time to spend the money, right? I'd rather get paid a nice amount of money and less money, and be able to have my time back to myself, because at the end of the day, that's something we can't get back, right?
I saw this good quote that said like your income is measured in dollars, but your wealth is measured in time.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely, yeah. Go ahead.
And I think for wealthier individuals, you get to a point where your money's making money on its own. So time is the asset that you really want to accumulate more of, because it's the one thing that you can never get back.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? And this, I guess, like statistics. I mean, you're econ major, right, professor? You look at like the the middle and lower class, right? Those are the most people that trade time for money. But the ones that who are the wealthiest are the ones who actually don't trade time for money. Like what you said, their time is measured. I mean, their wealth is measured in time that they can get back. And most wealthy people, man, they're not working 80 hours a week, man. They're working 10, 15 hours a week, but it's more effective. It's more efficient. They get a lot more done. And a lot of their money is working for themselves.
And I mean, it's easier said than done. Like once you get to that upper echelon financially, versus like if we are in like the lower middle, it's like you gotta work that extra because you're trying to climb that ladder to get to the point where you're well off enough financially to the point where you can get that money to work for itself.
But how do you do that though? It's a question, right? Like how. For someone who doesn't know, like, how do they even get to the point of having their money work for themselves? Like, how they don't know. Like, where do they even start?
I mean, to be honest, and to make it real plain, we've both been there though. Like, I mean, we started out where we started out, and you look at where we're at now and where we're going. Ask yourself, how did you get there? It really is out there, making connections. Grinding, like you got to be willing to put that work in, because if you're starting from lack, that means you're gonna have to work harder, and if you work harder, you develop certain skills, hopefully, that become marketable. When you have those marketable skills, you get jobs that pay. When you get the high paying jobs, hopefully you're able to move up, or you're able to start a business where you're providing a good or service that's so unique that it brings money in, and then you start networking. Like, I learned so much, and this is one of the things I really valued about like getting my job as a professor, like right out of college, was I was the youngest person in the department, but I had the ability to have conversations with people who've been in the profession for like 20, 25 years, and you learn what they're doing with their money, and you kind of get like a little step ahead because they're giving you the game. It's up to you to apply it. Which when you start networking with people want to see other people. Most people want to see other people succeed. And most of the times with a lot of these people, if you ask, they'll tell you.
So here's the question then. Do most people not become successful because they don't ask the right questions?
It's that's part of the problem. That's part of it, because you got to know the right questions to ask, but more importantly, you got to be ready to do what that answer to that question is.
Ooh,
and that's the most that's the most important part, and that's where I think a lot of people lack, is with that follow through. Like because traditional wisdom will tell you, all right, you get out of high school, you go to college, you're going to get a high-paying job. That's not the route now. And that's coming from an educator. Like, right. That's not the only way to do it. There's so much money in, like, having a trade or having certain type of skills. And, yes, college is probably the most, I don't want to say tried and true method. Like, it's probably the most, like, if you're risk adverse, like, that's probably the best way to go. But if you want to bet on yourself, there's other ways to do it. But you got to be willing to put the work in. So, yeah, you could be asking the right questions, but with those answers come back to you, you got to be willing to do what it's telling you to do. So, I mean, that's what it really just kind of boils down to. And I think that's a good place for us to start wrapping it up, because I would love to get the feedback from our listeners and viewers on what their thoughts are about that. Yeah. But I'm sure there's a lot of people, who are listening or watching that have climbed that ladder. And what do you think was probably the most important thing that helped you to get to the position that you're at? So, leave us some comments or send us messages and give us some feedback. And I think that's something that we can probably discuss in future episodes as well. But I do like the idea of incorporating, a component from like maybe a poll or something that we do on Instagram or Facebook, just to get some real-time results, because it was really cool for me to be able to share with my students what professionals were talking about, in terms of like that trade-off. And out of the 30 people that responded, 29 of them said time. Like they want to keep that free time. And that's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that said a lot to me.
Time.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for listening. That's been another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. Again, I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux. And whatever you guys are listening on or watching this on, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.